this video, I design parts online in great detail. Then, I do laser cutting to produce the parts. And this is USS Alaska 1/350 scale part 1 out of 2. So, first thing I do is I go online on Onshape where I design the hull. So what I'm doing right here is I'm cutting out the walls. And this time the walls are going to be made out of wood instead of cardboard. And I make sure that all the walls are aligned nicely. And in case there's any parts that need a bit of shaving on them because the walls have a little bit of a width to them. And in order to fix that, you need to shave them. Right here, what I'm doing is I'm making the catapult and aligning it up with the actual drawing, scale drawing of the ship. And you can see the 2 notches on the deck allow me to just straight up stick the catapults out, since the catapults are actually modeled with the wall instead of the hull. And this allows the catapult to come out seeming very clean out of the hull. It looks very nice that way. So yeah, it did take a little bit to design all the catapults very nicely, but it eventually got it. And then you see here are the walls. I'm using Roman numerals to denote them as where they would go from the bow. And that's
Alright, so this is the first piece done on our Alaska build that we just started today. We have the back hull and the forward hull. Again, these 2 pieces are cut separately because of the size constraints aboard the Glowforge. And if I compare them, they're actually roughly the size of the Bismarck. But the Alaska is pretty big for like a heavy cruiser. So yeah, that's the forward deck, and now I'm going to cut out the lower and middle decks. Alright, so right here we have the lower 2 hull pieces. This is the back portion with the propeller shaft, and this is the cover that will go over it. We didn't get everything done today because it's a bit short day, but here we have the 2 hull pieces, front and back. You can notice that the top plate is very slightly shorter than the top plate right here, because the Alaska has the bow rake, and I'm making the bow rake right here. Right here we have the forward middle hull, the 6 secondary guns, and then the 3 main 12-inch gun turrets. Okay, so the next thing the laser cut out is the upper panels for the upper hull, so that's above the water line. All the parts have an additional 2 with the Roman numerals on there, just to make sure I know that it is the 2nd floor. But you can notice that the freeboard on the Alaskas, there isn't a lot of freeboard. Alright, so the next thing I do is I print out the plates for the lower hull. Again, they're scored, so I know the series for construction. The propeller shafts are also made like this, so I can just put the propeller shafts straight in. And you have the forward parts and the back parts right here. And I made additional 2 of the catapult structures just so that there wouldn't be a gap. So right here we have the forward superstructure pieces, the back 2 sets of mounts for the 5-inch guns, and then you have the main hull right here. Alright, so the final few stuff is finally done. This print didn't work out, so I'm discarding it. This is the revised back plate, and then here's the 2 back pieces for the superstructure. So once all that's done, you know, we can see we have the massive set of materials, and we're going to do construction later. This is going to be very fun. Alright, so now we have the majority of the anti-aircraft guns, the 2 seaplanes right there, then all the anti-aircraft gun tubs, rangefinders in the back, superstructure pieces, propellers, and the searchlights. This took over 11 minutes to print, so this is a lot of stuff. Alright, so right here we have day 2 cuts. We have the little sprues for the 2 seaplanes right there, and then we have the superstructure parts right here, funnels, lower superstructure, the catapults, rangefinders, and additional stuff. Additionally, I did make them with my sprue design, so in order to give them better structure. So yeah, this is day 2, and we should have just one more print, and then we'll be finally done. So in order to make all the 20mm Oerlikons, what I have here done is I've made it into a sprue, a 44 per sprue, so it's protected, and you can take them off as you need. I made 2 sprues just in case I make any other American ships in the future. So yeah, these are 20mm Oerlikons. They're all stuck on here. Very nice. Alright, so the next thing that we did was we made the stand. 2-piece, one's the back. We'll probably write or print something out on here later. We got the main nameplate. This is Alaska, 1/350 scale, American large cruiser, 1944. That's what the camouflage is. And I made it so the model can't really fall off. This is the pretty much the exact width of the model. It just slaps on there. Nice.
Here we have the completed parts. Those 2 bags contain the parts for the superstructure. And then with that, I put a mock-up of the model together without any of the parts glued down yet. I just put all the parts together and this is how it looks. And then I'm gonna paint and color and glue everything together in the next video. So go check that out. It's gonna be out very soon. Like and subscribe.
Here I'm painting the hull and I just got the mask done. So I'm taking the mask off right here. That's the boot stripe, which looks pretty nice. Now that I got the camo on, it's like the hull has been camoed, and then the superstructure, I didn't glue the superstructure all together at once so I could do the camo, and I had the photo reference right there. And now I'm gonna glue the superstructure on. So that's the glue for the lower part right there. And that will just go on there like this. And then that's the first level of the superstructure done. And then now I'm just gonna stack it all the way up. Alright, so right here we're assembling the 5" 38 guns. And one of the things that my turrets previously had was they'd be able to rotate because of this cavity down in here that would allow the magnets in. However, the 5" 38s, they're tiny, and initially my models didn't have the secondaries be able to rotate. But now that I found these tiny little neodymium magnets, they're about 1/8 of an inch wide. And how I do it now is my newer 5" 38 models, they actually have a little cavity cut in them right there. And then I stick this right on here. That's just that just fell off. This is super glue, and I'm just sticking the little magnet onto the base of the turret. So the base is still just glued down, and because these 2 magnets, when their length is added up, they are just like 1 millimeter wider than the gap is. So this way the turret can just rest on top, and there doesn't need to be any additional bracing for the turret to be able to rotate. So yeah, and I put additional glue on the top magnet, and then making sure I don't hit the walls, I put these 2 together, just push them together, and then just like that, the turret's able to rotate, and that's how I make the secondaries be able to turn. So this is the hull right here. I got the anchors in the front. Superstructure has been painted with the camouflage, and the propeller shafts and the butt are down there. Catapults have been installed on the funnel, and now we're going to install the secondary guns. Okay, so now with the gun tugs installed, I've also installed the gun socks for the 12" guns. And they can't elevate, but they can turn. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start cutting out all these little strips and just putting them alongside the hull, and that'd be just a detail, a little small detail. So here I've painted a bunch of the 20mm gun tubs. Those are for 2 20mm, and then we just put them all on here. They've already been marked out where they're going to go, and because they're different guns, I think it'll contrast very nice. So these are all the 20mm bofors. It's 32 right now. I'm going to cut them out off the sprue and then put them all along here. Next thing I do is I get so the 20mm are down, and I get these hoses reels done, and then I do the masts right here. So what I'm building right here is the radar platform that'll go right here, and then the radar just sits on top there. Got some of the rangefinders down, and now we're pretty much nearly complete. We just have a few more details to add when we finish. Now right here that the masts are done, still need to install the radar. I did a bit of rigging, but I'm gonna do the main rigging later. What I'm doing now is installing all the little details, like all this little stuff is gonna be put on like there. So pretty similar to what my other builds are, except this time I've cut up parts from another model kit that I know I'm not gonna finish. It's like one of my stashed ones. and then I just move these little parts into place. Just a single drop of super glue is all I need, but they might need a little bit of convincing to come off of my tweezers right there. The radar is pretty interesting. So I take this piece of polyurethane sheet and I cut it out, and then I do these panel lines with a knife, and in order to give the detail that I want, I take panel liner over it, and then that gets the lines for the radar, like that. I do have to wipe it when I'm done, but that's just the general how I do it.